Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by hairy, hunky, huggable homos who love film. Try saying that 3 times fast, but you can't.
Nope.
To review movies and discuss film news. This week it's going to be probably a lot more on the film news side because we'll be recapping and reflecting on the Oscars, and I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. Well, maybe some special guests. But Jim Pliafco is with us. Jim, welcome.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And, of course, Will Lindis is here, too.
Actually, I've changed my name to the wickedly talented one and only Glom Gazingo, so make sure we're using that now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I'm going to get you totally confused with that guy from Saturday Day Headache or whatever that movie is.
Oh, yeah, the guy with the butt chin.
Right, yeah, totally. Well, big show tonight. Of course, we were going to do this last night and had some last-minute scheduling snafus on my end with work. So we are coming at you Tuesday nights.
Gross.
Tuesday's like an old friend, you know, like we just can't get away from Tuesdays sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
That sounds like a country song title. Can't get away from Tuesday.
Write it, Jim.
Oh,
you could be a best song nominee for.
And it could be one of those songs where like Tuesday is a day of the week, but it also could be like a woman's name. You know, like Can't Get Away from Tuesday. I could feel the soul of that song coming on.
It is half written already. Like you throw in a steel guitar and you got it.
Oh goodness, there you go. Well, guys, are you ready to just kind of hop into this behemoth of a discussion?
Oh my gosh, yes.
No film news. We're just this is the news, right? The Oscars.
Pretty much.
On Sunday, and let's jump into talking about that thing.
This is our Super Bowl.
That fiasco.
All right. Well, here we go. Our discussion of the Oscars. I always move my head around during that period of silence so that anyone live watching doesn't think that we've like frozen and like cancel out and restart. Freeze frame.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start doing that. Just find a ridiculous freeze frame for each one.
If you could like jump into the air and hang suspended in the air.
Freeze frame.
Totally. You could do the Zach from Saved by the Bell. You know, time out.
Time out.
So before we start talking about who won, who didn't, who was snubbed, who was not, thought we'd talk a little bit about our Oscar viewing experience. Jim and I threw a big Oscar party over the weekend. We had about 30 people in our house, and you know, we have a big house, but that's a lot of people to have in one house. Especially for us. We had 2 rooms set up. We rented a TV to put in the other room, and we had 2 seating areas. We're kind of floating back and forth. It was a lot of fun to watch it with so many of our friends. Will, did you guys go to any parties, or did you have one? Or
no, I did the exact opposite, and it worked out very well for me. I was at home visiting friends and family, so by the time I ended up leaving and hitting the road and driving back, like the ceremony was well underway. So I got back having DVR'd it all. I got to watch it. Yeah, I got to watch it all after I got home by myself without Facebook on, without anyone around me, and it was nice. It was a good change of pace because I'm very used to like the Grammys are on, the Super Bowl's on, the Golden Globes are on, and then you get that social media experience where everyone kind of tries to out-snark one another, and it's fun. I enjoyed doing that, but it was really nice for me. Movies are a big thing for me, obviously, for all 3 of us. You know, this is something we take extremely seriously. We have a lot of fun with, and it was nice to just sort of kick back and kind of pay reverence to this thing that I enjoy so much without the snark, without anyone else, and just sort of take it all in. So that was my experience this year.
Yeah, sometimes the social media stuff actually like pulls you out of what you're watching because you're paying a little more attention to that or trying to be snarky, and you kind of miss out on the experience, you know, in the face of social media.
I will. I mean, So you said you started it like an hour or two before, after it actually started. So you were kind of
Yeah,
out of sync for any kind of live tweeting or anything like that,
exactly.
which is really good. And we watched it. I mean, we had a party to attend to, so that kind of kept us out of the social media. Also,
Oh, sure, yeah.
I think I checked it once or twice at one point, and I'm like, oh, forget it. I'm not going to dive into this. You're right, because it's just a big. I mean, every single friend who's into movies and every
Or not into movies.
or not into movies. Oh god, yeah. And then all the websites and blogs and stuff that we follow are all live tweeting it. It's really overwhelming. It's tough to keep up with.
Well, it always makes me laugh because the same people who during football season are like, "Oh my God, can people just stop talking about football?"
The Super Bowl.
Those same people are the ones who, during the Oscars, every 5 seconds are like, "Oh my God, what did you think of her Jimmy Choos? Oh my God, what did you blah 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 blah." You know what I mean? And I'm like, come on, guys, let people have their yum. You know what I mean? Like,
Everyone's got their thing. Everyone's got their thing that gets them excited, that gets them pumped. It could be music, football, politics, in our case, movies, and kind of I follow the live and let live philosophy on Facebook. If you're a friend of mine, if you're someone that I care enough about to have clicked that friend button, and you want to post about fucking whatever, do it. That's what makes you.
You're not gonna yuck their yum.
I'm not gonna yuck their yum. If I'm a true friend, I want them to enjoy talking about what they enjoy.
Sure.
That said, and as much as I love snark as much as the next one, I fucking love a good snarky joke. It was nice just to put that on the back burner and just kind of have a very insular evening.
Yeah.
And speaking of snarky humor, Neil Patrick Harris, what did you guys think of his role in hosting?
I don't know. I mean, I think it was uneven. I think it was, hit or miss. I think, if we're going to get right into it, I thought the opening musical number, I thought it started out great. That might have been the highlight of the show for me. Was the opening musical number. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was a good song. It was a number called "Moving Pictures."
Moving Pictures.
Yes, and I thought it was well written. I thought it had some funny stuff in it. It had a couple of guest appearances, Anna Kendrick and Jack Black, and we'll get into Black's bit in a minute. But it talked about it touched on some of the highlights and the kind of the more standout moments of the year, and it had a very cool visual thing they did with the kind of like the silhouette animation in the background. I don't know if you've seen it on Facebook, but there's a very similar thing that Disney has done in shopping malls where people like walk by. I've seen it on a couple of friends' Facebook posts, and there's videos of this where they go into a mall and they set up the storefront with these huge panels, and as people walk by, they project what appears to be kind of their silhouette shadow, but it's a Disney figure. So as you're walking by, you might be Mickey Mouse or one of the Disney characters. And I think this was probably the exact same technology. Right. It might have even been the same team that did it. But I thought it was pretty cute. And like I said, I think that was, for me anyway. I mean, that kind of the opening kind of was funny. It moved me a little bit. It was great. And then from there on, it started with the kind of hit or miss stuff for me.
Right. Yeah, and I was the same way.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I thought the opening number was one of the highlights for me. It was a really solid opening number. I mean, we have NPH, Anna Kendrick, Jack Black, and I thought all of them did what they were supposed to do exactly the way that they were supposed to do it. The setting was really great. You had that lush red carpet. Curtain projection
drapery,
behind the drapery with like the little layered Oscars. Then that would transition into different scenes. All of it was very visually stimulating. The song was cool. All three of the performers were great. The message of the song was fun. but back to your original question, Brad, how was NPH as a host? It kind of fell off for me after that. I think NPH is a fantastic guy. I love Neil Patrick Harris. He is remarkably charming, remarkably witty. Put him in front of almost anything, and he'll deliver. And I think there were some moments of that where we really got to see what he was capable of. I just think he had a really, really bad script that he was working with, because it felt like the really scripted stuff fell extremely flat for me. Like there wasn't a lot of audience reaction. I didn't find myself laughing a whole lot, but every so often he would make a little off-the-cuff remark, like something that probably wasn't in the script, and that stuff by and large connected. So that was my view. It wasn't a fantastic hosting gig, but I don't put all of that on his shoulders.
Right, and neither do. I mean, the reports are that this, after the numbers, the TV ratings numbers came in, that this was like the lowest watched Oscars in like 6 years, I think they said.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it was. So, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me to see them change it up for a host for next year. I don't know if they'll continue with Neil Patrick Harris, at least for next year. They may make some changes. I don't know how invested they are in their TV ratings numbers. I mean, they do have a lot of corporate advertising, so I'm sure there's some concern there. So we'll see what kind of changes come next year. But yeah, Will, I agree with you. I think there were other highlights. There were other moments where I thought he was really funny as a host, and like you said, other moments where things just kind of fell flat. And you could tell because he would would let out this joke, and he would just kind of smirk and smile because he didn't get the reaction.
He knew it.
And to me, that was funny watching. It's kind of funny watching when scripted stuff doesn't go over, and to see the effect on the host. I thought that in itself was kind of funny for me to watch. But,
Yeah, I mean, for me, in terms of this question of whether Doogie was a doozy or a dud, I think I'm kind of right there with you. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I really enjoyed a lot of the earlier stuff, but as the night wore on, it was falling flatter and flatter. There were some things that definitely made me chuckle, but the whole thing with the case and Octavia Spencer, like, initially it was funny for a second,
yes,
but then I think there was just too much of that throughout. Now, I enjoyed the payoff at the end. I'm really glad it wasn't just like a list of who he thought was going to win each category, and more just like funny, observations or whatever. But that whole bit with the case, I'm just like, oh God, really? Are we going back?
What was it? A tedious joke that went on all night.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a one-note joke. And it was mildly funny when he first set it up, but every time he went back, it was like diminishing returns on comedy every time he went back to that. And the interesting thing was whether, I was trying to think at the end of the night, was that, were those things that he listed off as predictions at the end really predictions that he made that were scripted into the Oscars themselves? In other words, they were written into the show, because there was a bit with John Travolta and Idina Menzel, and that was one of his predictions that John Travolta would touch her face or something like that. And at the time it was happening, I'm like, why is he touching her face? It seems kind of random. And then I'm like, I get it. I think it was scripted. I think it was set up. Like, okay, when you go out there now, just, it'll be funny. You got to touch her face, blah, blah, blah. As opposed to, things that randomly happened during the show that they wrote on cards and gave to him under the premise that it was locked in the box. But
right.
It was kind of interesting. The payoff I thought was good, but the in between stuff between the time he set it up and the payoff was just kind of beating a dead horse. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of beating a dead horse and Birdman, what did you think of NPH coming out in his tidy whities?
That was one of the gags that I did actually enjoy. Not because I enjoyed seeing NPH in his tidy whities. I'm sure there are people that absolutely did and were like,
I did.
Eye candy.
I have a wide range. I did. I admit it.
that's great. For me, not my tempo, but it is for some people. But I thought that it was staged very well. The guy coming up and getting the autograph, and then you hear the drum going, and then you go past and you see Miles Teller playing the drum to it.
That was awesome.
I thought that was an amazing touch. Of the different, I actually wanted to see more of that. It would have been cool if they had found a way for, instead of some of the kind of the crappy monologue stuff that just didn't work, for them to have worked in more movie tributes, if they did something where, I don't know, they had a little boy, and then later on him, kind of like a Boyhood tribute or something like that. You have him doing a bunch of these little skits in between for all of the different Best Pictures, or even mashing them up. I think you would have had a lot better use of NPH's talents.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was funny when he came out in the tighty whities, and it was cute and all that. I just, again, like Will, it's not really my tempo with Neil Patrick Harris, but yeah, it was funny enough. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what he was doing when he came out in his tighty whities. Now, granted, we were hosting a party, so there were times when I was kind of pulled away from the TV to interact with the guests. And Will, I'll be honest with you, we've thrown this party for the last 4 or 5 years now, Brad.
Yeah. This is our 5th time doing it.
And every year it seems to get a little bit bigger. So there's a lot of prep. There's the house cleaning, there's the cooking, there's setup, setting up the seating areas, the TV, all that stuff. And as I'm doing it, the pressure's mounting, and I'm like, God, wouldn't it be great to just kind of sit back, Brad and I, and just kind of watch the Oscars and kind of be able to focus on it. But I mean, we have a blast at our parties. Don't get me wrong, but there are certain parts of the show that I actually miss because I'm hosting the party. And I don't know. Maybe we need to DVR it and then go back and watch it after.
Maybe
catch some of the stuff.
I know that they're I mean, we love hosting the party, but not everyone shows up before the Oscars start. So the doorbell's going off, we're letting people in, you know what I mean? We're restocking salad or chips or, emptying the recycling, whatever. So yeah, there are definitely moments that can be missed. And Jim is way better at he's like a behind the scenes wizard or something. Things just magically happen. You don't even realize he's left the room, but suddenly the recycling has been emptied and there's new food on the counter. And you're like, is Dobby the kitchen elf here somewhere? Who's doing that?
Nope.
But Jim's
Jim
amazing.
Sounds like the party ninja.
He is, totally.
Here's a platter. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, enough about the party anyway. But I wanted to hit back on something on the opening number, Jack Black's bit. That's gotten a lot of discussion, I think, after the fact. And he came out and he did a part that was kind of the antithesis of the moving pictures thing, where he talked about, he kind of threw some jabs at the industry. He threw some jabs at tentpole blockbuster comic book movies. And we actually had a guest at our party and a friend who kind of has noticed this negative tone toward blockbusters, and it was played for laughs during the event, but it's kind of a real thing that's out there, right?
Right, of course.
And we had a short discussion about whether the backlash has gotten to the breaking point, to any kind of a breaking point. Is that backlash against these kind of movies actually gonna continue to grow? Is it just a backlash within the Academy, or is the public gonna start backing down from some of these blockbuster movies? I don't know.
It's not gonna happen.
No,
I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon. It's probably one we probably can't spend a lot of time discussing. It could probably be like a whole topic unto itself about the industry. But I thought it was a funny bit during the show, but it had, if you think about it, it had a lot of relevance toward the discussion of how movies are growing these days.
But I think that's something that we see, maybe not every year at the Oscars, but it's something that it's not a brand new phenomenon. Going back decades, you've always had the Oscar movies, and you have the
Normal
The
people
tentpole
movies.
movies, and
Normal people movies.
it changes. It changes a lot generation to generation. You had a long stretch where the people that would draw in the big numbers were like your Schwarzeneggers and your Stallones, and kind of the macho action flicks. And that's not necessarily the way things have gone. Nerd culture has turned the macho hero into a guy wearing tights. So I think that thing is always going to happen, and we're going to see it morph. It's going to be something else in 5-10 years, and I think that we're always going to see that conversation happening. Like, where's trying it back to the Oscars, what's the validity of recognizing the movie that made $30 million versus the movie that made $300 million? Is the fact that one of them 10 times more box office successful, does that necessarily equate to quality? And I'm not going to necessarily come down one way or the other on that. I guess you can look at quality without looking at the numbers, and that's sort of what the goal is here. But it's an interesting discussion, and one that I think we'll constantly be having.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there was a time where I didn't really care about the Best Picture nominees because, in my experience, most of those movies were like highfalutin, indie. Well, not indie, artsy fartsy, films that I didn't really, care that much to see. And obviously this was when I was younger, in my 20s, and when I was, even younger, films like Schindler's List would come up, and I'm like, ugh, don't care. Let's get to the animated category, And obviously things are a little different now, especially now that we're doing a film podcast and we're seeing like 160 plus movies a year. You know what I mean? I have a more vested interest, but I mean, as just an average moviegoer, I totally see how movies with more mass appeal, you know what I mean, are probably going to be snubbed a little bit, especially when you make a phenomenal film, for instance, like Birdman, and it only gets, maybe a 20th of the movie-going box office money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm sure that sticks in the craw a little bit.
Right. And I saw something written somewhere that said of the 8 or 9 best picture nominees. I think there were 8 actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So of the 8 pictures, American Sniper made over 50% of what they all made. Like it was American Sniper is the only mass appeal movie in that list of films, and that's kind of interesting, right? I bet a lot of people were tuning in to see if American Sniper would win, and pulling for that movie because it may have been the only big movie they saw that year,
right?
Last year.
Yeah, even referenced that. He did like a little bit where he's like, all right, split the theater down the left, down the middle. Everyone on the left, you're the other however many nominees. Everyone on the right, you're American Sniper. That's how the financials break.
I think I was emptying the recycling at that point.
Where's Jim?
And what's even more interesting is, you have the numbers for American Sniper, and then you consider Guardians of the Galaxy, which made like a fuck ton more than that. You know what I'm saying? And so it definitely illustrates that point. But hey, speaking of artsy, highfalutin movies, maybe, we have a live comment from Thomas Hallberg who says, "Boo to Boyhood."
Well, he's not alone. That movie, as even as we said in our review, that movie was certainly not everybody's cup of tea, I think, and he may fall in that section of people who that movie just didn't do anything for, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a kind of movie that does it for you, and and then movies that just don't. We certainly have ours, right? And we talk about this.
That's what's so great about this, about not just our discussion, but the discussion about movies in general, is that a film plays to a lot of different things. It might play to some things that happen to you personally in life that you relate to. It may relate to your artistic sensibilities or your emotional sensitivities or anything along those lines, or it just may look really fucking cool on screen. There's a lot of different things that you might be looking for in a movie, and it's going to be different person to person. That's why I love doing what we do every week. And that's why I love talking to people that that write into us about the show and say, hey, I really love this, or man, that movie sucked. Why did you guys like it, or what have you? Because it's really eye-opening and it's fun to talk about. It's so fun to do this.
Absolutely. I mean, he says "Boo Boyhood," but I mean, apparently the Academy was pretty much in line with him.
Wow.
His opinion of Boyhood. I mean, it certainly got a few nominations.
Yeah.
But it certainly didn't get the Academy voting love that I think some people may have expected.
Right.
Well, I know I expected it. I was bragging, and now I feel really dumb. But I was bragging last week that for the last few years, I usually get like the most out of the Oscar categories right out of our group of friends. I tied with somebody last year, but this year, like, Birdman was totally the dark horse that like destroyed my predictions. Like, I ended up, coming in like third place instead.
Yeah, I think though, if and Brad, I know you don't really follow. I think for people who follow a lot of movie blogs, I think their calibration on predictions was put more into the Birdman camp based on that.
Yeah.
And I we have this discussion every year. I always vote on my poll with my heart, not with my head. I pretty much had heard a lot of experts saying, "Oh yeah, Birdman's going to get this. Michael Keaton, Birdman, Inarritu is going to get director." And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put down Linklater. I'm going to put down Boyhood, just because that's kind of where I would like it to go. And if it goes there, I'll be the happiest. So that's how I did it.
Yeah, well, I succumbed to my heart a little bit this year. I'll say it. I'll admit it. Go ahead, Will. I
was going to say I got first place on my competition. Of all the people that were voting in my household, first place, hands down. I mean, I was watching it by myself, so that made it super. No, what I did, and I think I mentioned this last week, is I print out the little ballot, and it has a little spot where you can like fill in the little dot, kind of like a Scantron in school. And so you do that with your prediction. And so what I would do is I would go through that first with my prediction, and then I went back through, and then I circled the name of the one that I wanted to win. So I kind of had both on the same ballot. Like, this is my predictions, but I also want to give some love to the ones that I thought.
Jim, amazing idea for next year. We're getting a Scantron, so we don't have to like have everyone grade each other's papers. That's what we're doing.
Fine. Just put it by the front door. Slide it in.
Just a giant Scantron machine. Do it.
It only took a few minutes. It wasn't that bad.
You know what? I actually have one of the voting machines from the famed Hanging Chad election scandal. We could totally set that up.
Nice.
I don't know if you should set that up.
Well, I figure Hanging Chad at our party might be something totally different.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm coming to your Oscar party next year. Chad, give me a call.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh God.
We know a few hot Chads. So
we do know a few hot Chads, definitely. Chad from St. Louis, who will be going to Florida, we're thinking of you directly right now. Without a shirt on. Anyway, so, you know what? I do want to bring something up real quick that kind of stuck in my craw. I know we'll kind of talk about the list of winners and our thoughts, but I typically really enjoy the in memoriam segments. Enjoy is the wrong word. They typically really touch me, and it's and I appreciate what they do. But there was one person left off this year. I could not believe she was not on there, and the fact that they left Joan Rivers.
Betty White? No.
Joan Rivers.
Oh, gotcha.
Out of that segment kind of astounds me. I mean, love her or hate her, right? She's been a red carpet fixture for years and years and years. She's had a long Hollywood career. They put her in the in memoriam gallery on Oscar.com and not actually in the segment. And that just is kind of crazy to me that she would not be included. Were you guys surprised to see that at all, or?
I wasn't surprised at the time because I hadn't thought of it. In other words, when they went through it, I wasn't like, "Oh, where is she in here? I don't see her." I just wasn't thinking of it because I was kind of caught in the moment of seeing, all these people who had passed this year, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's right, we lost that person," and this is crazy. And like you, Brad, I guess enjoy is maybe not the appropriate word, but I certainly appreciate seeing that, and it always has the same effect on me. And to see, just kind of get in touch with that, fragility of life kind of thing.
Right.
These people who we remember as such vibrant, creative people are now no longer with us, right? But we can remember them that way. But yes, not seeing her in there was after the fact, I'm like, that's interesting why she wasn't in there. And then since the Oscars in the last couple of days, I've been seeing these articles. Oh, well, the Academy explains why Joan Rivers wasn't in there. And then you read the article, and no, it doesn't explain why she wasn't in there. It just, they respond to it by saying, oh, well, we have to consider there's 100 people that pass every year, and we can only put in so many in a 3-minute segment. And then the rest we put in our, what was it, Brad? It was like a...
they have an in memoriam gallery on Oscar.com.
Right.
But even that is suspect, because they include like a writer that nobody really has maybe heard of before,
right,
versus someone like Joan Rivers who is like a household. You know what I mean? Like,
well, So when I watched it, I wasn't thinking about Joan Rivers either. The one I was thinking about at the time was Elaine Stritch. That was the one. I'm like, why is she not here? She absolutely needs to be there. That said, one of the things I read the thing about the there's only so many, we have to leave them out. But I also read that I don't believe that she was and I could be wrong on this, but I read a lot of things that basically said that she wasn't a member of the Academy at the time of her death. Neither was Elaine Stritch, and they reserved the ones that are shown on the show for actual Academy members.
Oh,
I hadn't heard that.
They should put a little asterisk with some text at the bottom then that says something like, your death only matters if you're a member of the Academy.
Or, Academy members that have passed on in this year. No, I don't know. I hadn't seen that. I don't know if that's true. It's not... I'll have to look that up. Did they come out and actually say, well, we reserve the on-show spots for Academy members, and that's why...
I don't think they came out and said that, but it was something...
Somebody's supposition?
I've read that from probably a good 5 or 6 different sources, all individual, because I was looking it up.
I've seen people say, oh, she was a comedian, she wasn't an actress, blah, 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 but she was in some movies, and certainly she was, I don't know. I thought she was deserving of being in there.
Right. Well, where do you guys want to go from here? Do we want to talk some of the categories? Do we want to do more overall impressions of the show? It's a choose-your-own-adventure Oscar discussion.
I just want to talk about the show itself a little bit, just a tiny bit more. The show's duration was about 3.5 hours, something like that, I think.
Yeah.
And and there's always complaints every year the show is too long. What I noticed this year is we got to about 2.5 to 3 hours into it, and there were still several major categories.
Yeah.
It's the way the show is paced out that I think I have a problem with. I mean, they need to spread some things out a little bit more. Maybe they're afraid of losing their audience before the end. I don't know. I'm not sure why. And it always seems like it's a huge rush at the end to get those last 4 or 5 major categories done in the last 20 minutes or whatever it is. And to me, that's kind of crazy, because I'm watching the clock and I'm like, my God, they only have like 25 minutes left at this commercial break, and they haven't done like 4 or 5 major categories. And it's crazy.
They had 9 minutes left when they then had to rush through the last 3.
Right.
I was watching the clock. It was like 9 minutes, and so it's kind of insane. But that kind of bothered me. And when you get 2.5 to 3 hours into the show, I think everybody pretty much just wants to know, okay, come on, give out these awards and let's move on. We've seen all the musical acts. We've seen all the in memoriam stuff, and all the jokes have been said. People want to get out of there and go to parties. They want to. The ninja wants to clean up his kitchen. GTFO, everybody! It's time to clean.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like this is like a one one-time thing where it's just like, oh, we just happened to go over this year. Every year they go crazy over. So at some point, I think one, they just come to expect it and are fine with it. I don't think they care as much. We care. We have precious amounts of time. We have work the next morning. All those types of things. But the problem is they do bloat it with so many extra things. I mean, we cut out the box gag entirely. Like if that whole thing was cut, you have an extra 10 minutes of show because that kept going. Maybe we wouldn't have to play the music so quickly on the costume designer as he's trying to thank his wife or something like that.
Or the director of Ida.
Or the director. Well,
right.
I think he made his stand and said what he needed to say regardless of what the Academy wanted. But yeah, I mean, I like the comedy. I like the way that it's there to kind of bridge things together, but at some point, you've just got to pace the show, and you've just got to make sure that you're able to fit everything you need within the allotted amount of time. And,
right.
And if anything, what they should be doing is relying on their host, not to say the scripted lines, but they should. If I were running the Oscars, and I'm obviously not, I would aim for amount of content that could run under the amount of time. And if people take longer, then fine, you bloat it. And if not, you have a host who's engaging enough that they can wing it, that they can keep, that they can fill the time. That's the host shouldn't be trying to rush through stuff. He should be kind of filling the gaps and kind of being the glue that holds things together.
And I don't know if anybody else noticed it but me, but like toward the end when they were announcing some of the major category nominees, they would announce it and they would show like a graphic title on the screen, and it seemed like they may have shortened those. They may have it may have been a title and then a short clip. They it seemed like they showed the title and then cut right to the next title and didn't show any of the clips in those sections. So they may have tried to shorten it. And I'm not saying necessarily that. Yes, I think the show is a bit too long, but I also think they need to spread out the awards a little bit in the show time, just a little bit more, and make the show seem like at least that it's evenly paced.
I wonder if the reason why they don't have it paced out is, I think from an entertainment standpoint, it would make total sense to save Best Picture for the end, but spread out the actor, spread out director, kind of the big ones. But, and I don't know how much of a factor this is probably for the average person, but at least for like pundits or those who follow it more closely or things like that. Usually, when you can see who wins certain awards, and you can figure out exactly who's going to win Best Picture, and so like by the time you find out who gets Best Director, a lot of times that indicates very heavily who's going to get which is going to get Best Picture. So it might take some of the drama out of that final award if you adjust the order. I don't know if that's going to be as important to the average Oscar viewer, but I imagine that comes into the equation somewhere.
Right.
Definitely.
Yep.
Well, do you guys want to talk about some of the winners?
I think we should. Obviously, we'll get to them. I mean, we don't have to necessarily go through them category by category. We'll probably hit most of the categories in our general discussion anyway. But I don't know. I think I'm starting to fall into the camp of Academy skeptics at this point. I think this last year has kind of actually led to my souring on the Academy Awards. Not the show, but just kind of the process in general. There were some big screw ups, I think, this year, and the voting, the anonymity of the voting process itself, and the anonymity of the voters. I mean, the whole thing seems like I don't know. I just credibility wise, it's at a very low point for me. And that's not just because some of my favorites didn't win. It's because I just think the way they attend to nominations and the way the voting happens, I just don't think we can say it's a. First of all, the whole concept of selecting the best art is another thing that's kind of ridiculous on it in face value, right? I mean, how do you judge between pieces of art and say, oh, this one's the best one? But I mean, we try to do it. We've been, it's been done for a long time, not just in motion pictures, but music and other arts. So I don't know. I'm just a little bit disillusioned after some of the stuff that happened. And one of the categories that did that for me was Best Animated Feature this year.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we had the huge outcry when the Lego Movie was not nominated, and I think almost everyone would agree. I mean, even if you didn't love the Lego Movie, like I didn't really love it, I thought it should have been in that category for consideration at the end for Best Animated Feature. And then when, of course, one of the big surprises of the night, guys don't mind if I go into that, do you?
No, please.
Yeah, go for it.
So, one of the biggest surprises or upsets, if you want to call it, during the night, I think, was the win for Big Hero 6 over, notably over How to Train Your Dragon 2, and movies like The Tale of Princess Kaguya and so forth.
Right.
To me, it was kind of astounding. Will, I don't know, what did you pick? I mean, on that one, I know we both picked wrong, you and Brad.
Yeah,
right.
It was a weird category. I had a good night predictions wise, but this was one I got wrong. And the category itself was very funky from the get-go. Lego Movie would have, if William was running the Oscars, Lego Movie would have been nominated and would have won. Maybe not necessarily my favorite animated movie of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That was Tale of Princess Kaguya was my favorite animated movie of the year. But kind of taking in all of the different things, I would give the statue to the Lego Movie. I thought it was the, in terms of like critical success, commercial success, kind of making, way exceeding expectations, all of those. I thought it was a home run, and for it to not even be nominated was a weird mark against the category. So then I looked at the actual nominations, and I don't have a problem with any of the films that were nominated, to be honest. In terms of those, I did not see Song of the Sea, to be fair, but the other four I had seen, and all four I thought were very strong showings. So with Lego Movie out of the mix, I'm probably less irritated than other people were, because at that point it was kind of like, well, the one I wanted to win is out. So I voted for How to Train Your Dragon because I thought that was what was going to win.
Right, me too. Yeah.
I thought Big Hero 6. I thought Big Hero 6 had less of a chance. What I guess I failed to take into consideration, and you hit on it before, Jim, and I guess this is a bit of a diatribe. I think that the Oscars are not necessarily a. I think we think of the Oscars as necessarily like this is an impartial group deciding what is the best film, and that's not what the Oscars are. A lot of things happen both behind the scenes and in terms of like just time and place. Boyhood, which we'll talk about here in a minute, was released way too early in the cycle, and other factors played. And here, of course, we have DreamWorks is not as well respected. I don't know if that's the right word, but within the Academy as Disney Pixar is. So you've got basically that influences votes. Everything like that influences votes. So I think that's where Big Hero 6 picked up a lot of its stuff, was just from the natural inclination from voting members who maybe hadn't seen all of these, because if you're a voting member, you don't necessarily have to have seen all of these things. That would just say, you know what, having seen none of these, or maybe having only seen one, I like those Disney people better than I like the DreamWorks people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if I had taken all of the animated features that I maybe thought should be nominated in the category, I would have. Again, I didn't see Song of the Sea either, but I would have put the Lego Movie and found a way to put the Lego Movie in that category. And if the Lego Movie, How to Train Your Dragon 2, Tale of Princess Kaguya, Big Hero 6, the Box Trolls and stuff were in that category, for me, I mean, Big Hero 6 is maybe fourth on that list. I mean, in terms of what I think is quality animation and storytelling, I'd have Princess Kaguya up there, somewhere near the top.
Well, because it's so interesting, right? We had this comment about, superhero movies and, blah, blah, blah.
Right, exactly.
Well, for me, I mean, Big Hero 6 was like the Avengers in a category of like more emotionally resonant, more artsy films. I realized How to Train Your Dragon 2 was more of a more of like a blockbustery, wider audience movie than the Tale of Princess Kaguya. But it's kind of the same thing. I was surprised to see it go to a superhero movie as opposed to one of the others. I was kind of amazed by that, and I've been reading a lot that I guess there's a lot of sentiment that I guess Disney has a lot more money than some of these other studios to like promote their materials and get it in front of members of the Academy who are voting, and there's a lot of politicking that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just them sitting in a room watching a movie and deciding necessarily which one they like best. Right. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. I will say though, even though my choice for Best Animated Feature did not win, I am very happy to live in a world where we have so many great animated films coming out. Yeah. Because once upon a time, these films were just looked at as, oh, they're just stupid kids movies, nobody cares. And I think animation is such a phenomenal medium. And even though who I wanted to win didn't, I'm glad that we get some love to these animated films because it's deserving.
Yeah. I mean, where's a movie like Paddington in this process? How does that get lost? I believe it was released in 2014. Maybe not in the U.S., but I think it was released in 2014. So I don't know if it's going to be eligible in 2015 for an Academy Award or not. But there's another quality film.
It's a great movie. I love Paddington, but it wouldn't really qualify as an animated feature. I wouldn't think.
You're right. I guess
that wouldn't fall under live
action. You're right.
I take that all back. Its U.S. release fell in January 2015, so that's one that could sneak in next year. I mean, it wouldn't be in an animated role, but you might see that in like visual effects or something like that. Right. Depending on what else.
Foreign. Does Britain get to put in a foreign?
I think
since most of the Best Picture ones are British anyway.
I don't know that would make it that far. I think that would be a little bit of a cock your head sideways and say, well, no. But for me, it was one of those like Brad, you're absolutely right. Like this was a strong field, and I did like Big Hero 6 quite a bit. I loved that movie, and it's so while I got it wrong on How to Train Your Dragon, Lego Movie, and Kaguya. I'm okay with this win because I did think it was a very solid movie, and I would have felt the same way if it doesn't get quite as much love. But I thought Box Trolls was actually a very quality film as well. So
and I know a lot of the lobbying and politicking goes on for not just the animated movies, but every category. But to see it win and then know that it's released like 2 days later on Blu-ray and DVD really kind of makes me go, it just seems like there's maybe more going on that doesn't seem above board. I don't know. I don't know if it can be coincidence or not.
I don't think it's that. I mean, I think that might be a little. I might question necessarily that, but I do imagine that Disney, when they released, when they came out with the schedule, they said, well, it's at least a nominee. Let's release it right afterwards. So I don't think that its release date influenced the voting, but I do think that its nomination influenced its release date. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, because we have movies like Whiplash and Theory of Everything that just came out. You know what I mean? And it's right around the same time. So I think they're all trying to capitalize on the buzz. You know what I mean? Around Oscar time and being talked about on national TV. But Jim, I mean, I can definitely see where you're kind of coming from too, in a way, because do they have enough time to slap that Academy Award winner sticker on the back?
We're gonna check out the stores tomorrow and we'll see. But here's the thing, right? I mean, that just speaks to the fact that the Oscars are, and again, here's my cynicism coming up again, and it to me that the Oscars are more of almost as much a marketing thing. Their value lies as much in the marketing as anything else. I think there's more values in the Oscars for marketing as opposed to just about anything else. I mean, I can't think of another noble reason why we have the Oscars.
Yeah, and that's very fair. But I will also say that I say that that's probably the case, but I don't necessarily see that as a 100% negative either, because one of the other things that we've got is a lot of these films are ones that I would say that collectively we all enjoyed when we reviewed them. You know, the Boyhoods, the the Birdmans, the Whiplashes.
Mm.
You know,
Grand
the
Budapest, right?
Grand Budapest. You know, any of these different films. Well, maybe we didn't all love Grand Budapest, but
No, but a lot of people did.
but a lot of these films, you know, may not be as accessible to a lot of other people, and then you have an award show like this, and now maybe someone is watching this and going, "Oh, hey, J.K. Simmons," or that's the name of the guy who is in those insurance commercials.
Mm-hmm.
He won an Oscar. I should go check out this movie. And
Right.
now the filmmakers who make these movies are more incentivized to make movies like this, as opposed to all of them just saying, well, fuck it, I'm going to make Transformers 5. So as a marketing tool, it does give more exposure to the types of films that, by and large, I would say we consider quality films, even if they didn't all personally resonate with us, which then churns the cycle so that next year there will be more of these made, and the next year there will be more of these made. So maybe that's what the Oscars is it's a perpetual motion machine that keeps generating Oscar-quality movies. And as someone who enjoyed a lot of the ones nominated this year, I can't say I can't say that's 100% a bad thing. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And to your point, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think every one of the 8 Best Picture nominees got at least one Oscar win in some category, if I'm not mistaken.
I think the only one that might be an exception would be
Wild?
Foxcatcher.
Well, Foxcatcher wasn't for Best Picture.
It wasn't for Best Picture then.
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
So
American
I think
Star-
so.
Yeah, every single one of the ones that was not all of those 8 won at least one statue. You're right.
They all get to put Academy Award winner on their DVD box, right? So and there you go. Well, I mean that's kind of like the marketing machine. That's called spreading the wealth, right? Within the Academy and keeping movies valid.
And you see that a lot of the voters, you'll hear them talking about that, or at least people talking about their vote, since a lot of them don't disclose exactly who they voted for. But a lot of the smaller awards, and I say that with air quotes, things like costume and makeup and original score and some of the, I guess, the more technical-ish type awards, tend to go to ones that aren't necessarily the Best Picture winner, and a lot of that is someone saying, look, I'm going to vote for Birdman to win this whole thing, but I also want to show the Imitation Game some love, so I'm going to throw something their direction as well. So you get to see that as kind of a sign of respect within the Academy itself, people throwing smaller awards towards these other movies just because that's it's the kind thing to do. I don't know if that kind is the right word, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Any other awards stand out to you guys?
I was very, very happy to see Patricia Arquette take best soccer mom. Best soccer mom who has a breakdown at the end of the movie, but they don't even show that clip because that clip was awesome. They show a different clip.
Yes. Awesome. Best 3-time divorced soccer mom.
By and large, I was not a fan of the acting clips that they chose.
I know. Yeah.
A lot of them had just like, oh, that's the scene they picked. Like I think they even like the Reese Witherspoon one was fine. The one where she kind of rushes in and sees her, what happened to her mom. But there were other better scenes. It's like the opening. I guess she drops an F-bomb in it. Maybe that's why they didn't use it. But even when you pan back over to Reese Witherspoon, she had this look on her face like, just like, oh, okay, I guess that's the one they chose. And I felt that like multiple times. Like J.K. Simmons was great, but I think that's because he's nonstop intense through that entire movie.
I liked the Laura Dern one they showed. That was probably one.
Yeah, the Laura Dern.
I did like that one. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, there were certain awards that were considered slam dunks, I think, and that was definitely one of them, right? The Patricia Arquette was.
Yeah.
If there was anything close to a sure thing in this slate of nominees, it was probably that one. Winning. The rest I thought were pretty well contended. It usually though in each category it would come down to maybe 2, right?
Yeah.
That you thought it could be. In Best Picture, it was Birdman or Boyhood. In Best director, it was those two directors,
Yeah.
Inarritu and Richard Linklater, right? So, and then best actor, right? Everyone was talking about either Eddie Redmayne or Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah. So, which that was kind of a shame. It was kind of sad to see, you know, almost everything in Birdman win something except for the guy that really basically carried the fucking movie to its prominence, and a guy who's definitely paid his dues in the business,
right?
With all the clunkers he's been in and kind of restarting his career. It seems a little bit of an injustice not, for him not to win, and that's not to knock Eddie Redmayne's performance, and I have an issue with the bias toward giving awards to people who play the infirmed and the afflicted people with physical handicaps or mental or emotional problems. They always seem to get kind of an unfair bias in the voting.
The afflicted are the award gifted.
That's right.
You do see transformative roles tend to have a higher win rate. You have not to take anything away from Matthew McConaughey, but he lost a lot of weight, so let's give him the statue.
Exactly.
But that said, this year, so our Best Picture nominees we actually had two of those. Or Best Actor nominees. There were two that were transformative. We had both Eddie Redmayne and Stephen Hawking in Theory of Everything, and we had Steve Carell as the main character in Foxcatcher. And I felt that one of those performances, Steve Carell's, was very much based on his prosthesis and probably not as deserving of the nomination as needed. Eddie Redmayne's performance was my personal pick to win, not just because he played the afflicted, but because I feel like he really did a good job of selling every single part of that transformation, not just how he sat in the chair, the actual affliction itself, but the way that he performed every stage of that transformation in that movie.
Well, I agree. I'm not, like I said, I think he did a wonderful job, but it's almost like they need a separate category for best imitation of an afflicted person.
Oh my God.
It's like there's doing an imitation, and then look at what Eddie Redmayne did. That, to me, that's kind of an imitation. You're kind of imitating a person that that is an iconic person, first of all. So our appreciation of his performance is going to be based on how well he imitates that person. And then you have somebody like Michael Keaton, who's bringing to the screen a new character, a character who's got to get you on board, up to speed with the character from ground zero, not where, hey, everybody knows Stephen Hawking, let's see how good this guy can do Stephen Hawking. I don't know. I think it's kind of apples and oranges, and it's kind of an unfair competition. If you ask me.
Then I don't know. For me, by that argument, then maybe if maybe we shouldn't be making bio pictures.
Well, then the Oscars stop.
Right.
Exactly. Take out like half of these. Oh God, you got American Sniper. You could take out.
All four of the
Selma, Theory of Everything. Yeah, 4 of them come right out.
Right.
4 of the 5 best actors: Steve Carell in Foxcatcher, Benedict Cumberbatch in Imitation Game, Bradley Cooper in American Sniper, and Eddie Redmayne in Theory of Everything, were all based on other people. Michael Keaton as Birdman was the only original character.
So if you make 2 separate categories, then you've got 2 movies in that category, and then the rest. You know what I mean? I see where you're coming
from. Miles Teller gets nominated.
I would enjoy that, actually, but
yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah. But I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from, Jim. It definitely gives you a leg up. If you're portraying someone that is famous, is already well known, obviously the audience is already comparing that performance. But for me, I would say that actually makes it harder than playing an original character because I know who Stephen Hawking is. I know what he's like when I've seen him on TV. I've listened to, speeches that he's given. And so as I'm watching The Theory of Everything, I am constantly critiquing Eddie Redmayne and how
Right.
he is portraying him. Way more than I was like watching
Right.
Michael Keaton like spin, as this new character.
Yeah. I think we're getting into an age-old discussion here, but again, he doesn't have to build that character. You already know who that character pretty much is. You've seen him, you've heard him talk, you know what he looks like, you know what his mannerisms are. Boom. All I got to do is do that and do it well, and I'm golden.
But if you're doing an original character, you can do whatever, and then no one has anything to hold it to. I'm saying it is very apples to oranges. So what you then have to do, at least for me, is I then take that out of the equation and then just say who did the best job of performing whatever their character was, whether it be someone that exists, someone that doesn't exist, someone that we know a lot about, or someone that we don't know a lot about, because there's a lot of different factors, and that goes for any role too. Like someone doing an original character in a comedy versus an original character in a drama versus an original character in a sci-fi flick or whatever it is. They're going to have different sensibilities and things that are going to have to bring to the role. So you could certainly make it extremely granular and split it off into like 8 different Best Actor categories, and I would be okay with that. Like if we had a different format for it, like if it was just an Actors Award, like we have the Directors Guild Awards and the Writers Guild Awards. If we just had one that was nothing but acting awards, you can really split it out. But since we can't, and I guess the other thing too about this is I don't think it takes anything away. Like if my personal pick was Eddie Redmayne, and I still thought Michael Keaton did a fucking amazing job with Birdman. Like I think that's the one thing too that I like to think about with the Oscars is just because one person wins, that doesn't devalue the other 4 in those categories at all. Sometimes it's a very tight race, and sometimes it's just a matter of like, hey, look at all of these amazing people. I kind of look at the Oscars in general as honoring amazing different things, and then the winner is certainly important. That's what we're talking about. That's what everyone predicts and chats about. But in some ways, it's almost like a secondary part of it for me. I like the recognition towards everyone that's nominated, and that's. Everyone gets a trophy. Let's do Little League rules.
And you get a trophy, and you get a trophy.
Yeah.
Some people think that they should have marked off Eddie Redmayne's vote count for his performance in Jupiter Ascending.
And I wouldn't.
You can't do that. You can't do that. No, you can't do that.
I wanted to see him give his speech in that voice. I wanted him to be like, I'd like to thank the Academy. This is a really great job because I really deserve it.
I was reading an article earlier, and I'll have to find it and share it with you guys. But it was basically taking the top 9 historically people that were nominated for or won an acting Oscar and immediately followed it up with a shitty movie.
Yes, I saw that too.
Yeah. So of course you had Eddie Redmayne going from this to a Jupiter Ascending.
Eddie Murphy went from Dreamgirls to Norbit. Yep.
Yeah. Although in Eddie Redmayne's defense, Jupiter Ascending was supposed to come out over the summer.
Yeah, I think that was done before. Maybe.
Right.
It might have even been done before.
So I think whoever wrote that article needs to go back and do some editing.
And check their shit!
That's right. That is not Eddie Redmayne's fault. So, whatever.
You're not my mother!
But hey, speaking of doing impressions, let's talk a little bit about Lady Gaga and her Sound of Music performance.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys are smiling. Does that mean you were fans?
Yeah, I definitely liked her performance. The problem with it was it came way too late in the broadcast, and I'm like, oh, we're going to have another long musical number here, and I'm already 2.5 hours invested in the show and want to see who. Unfortunately, it came very late. It was awesome, though. I mean, she, I never doubted that. I mean, that woman has talent. I've seen the things she's done other than her hits, quote unquote, that come off, Poker Face and whatever else the hell else. Paparazzi. I've seen her do acoustic performances where she's a really talented musician, songwriter, performer, right? So perfect choice, perfect performance. Having Julie Andrews come out at the end was really sweet.
Very touching, yeah.
Very touching. and honoring Sound of Music that way, I thought was wonderful. Nothing wrong with that performance whatsoever, except, like I said, I think putting long musical performances at the end of this is kind of like prolonging the inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right there with you. I thought she was amazing in this. I like Lady Gaga. I think she is an extremely talented person. No matter which way you look at her, as a pop icon, as a hit maker, as an actual musician, kind of stripping all these things down. I think she's great in whatever capacity you put her in. She's an extremely hardworking woman who put out like 4 albums in something like 6 years. Don't quote me on the exact math, but it's like, you can't churn out that many things, tour as heavily as she does, do as many of the things you do without having the talent to back it up. And I was glad to see that in this particular performance, she was able to strip it down and say, this is the stuff that that I put into all those other performances. I can do the upbeat pop stuff, but it's because I'm an actual musician, an actual singer. I have these skills. I do agree, should not have been in the show, or maybe should not have been in the show as it appeared. The show was going so long at that point. This just pushed it over. The only thing I could think of when I was watching this was like, this was really amazing. I wish I could go back in time and put her in Carrie Underwood's spot in the live one that they did on television about a year or so back, because that would have been something crazy cool to see.
Right. Yeah, they tried to recreate the magic of the movie in that performance thing with Carrie Underwood, and it was kind of a disaster. But
yeah,
who knows if Lady Gaga would have saved it? I mean, she obviously can sing. I don't know if she could have saved that, but yeah, that was one great musical performance. Brad, I assumed you liked.
Oh my God, it was phenomenally done. I mean, I've always enjoyed Lady Gaga. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh my God, Lady Gaga, everything she does is amazing. But I mean, I've liked a lot of her hits. Jim, I think you found an acoustic version of Paparazzi she did a few years ago. That
kind of opened my eyes to her.
Absolutely, and it made me take her more seriously, and that got me more into her stuff. And when I heard she was going to be performing and doing a Sound of Music tribute, I'm like, this could be really interesting. Like, are we going to have like glitzy dancers like coming out behind her? And now it's all set to like, BPM. But no, I thought she did a phenomenal job. Exactly, bathhouse music. But I thought she did a phenomenal job. In fact, I wish that mashup was like on iTunes so that I could buy it. I would totally.
Oh yeah.
I would totally do that. Like, she could donate all the money that sale makes. She could donate all the money that sale makes to like Austrian kids who go without cheese. You know what I mean?
She should donate it all to the Let's Fix the Oscars campaign.
That works too. Yeah. That works too.
Jim, I thought you said Disney already donated to fix the Oscars.
Well, they did. They did.
See what you did there, Will.
They fixed it all right.
We don't know that.
Well, they do own ABC.
Oh gosh. All right.
So, other musical performances. You guys saw the Everything Is Awesome bit with Tegan and Sarah and a bunch of people, stormtroopers and shit dancing around. That was kind of fun.
The Batman was the best part of that whole thing.
Yeah,
the Batman and Oprah getting one of the Lego Oscar statues. That was awesome.
Hey, Steve Carell got one Oscar tonight.
Oprah was everywhere. What is it with her? Oprah was everywhere that night. Like, she was in almost everything. Every time they scanned the crowd, they always had to like reset it back to Oprah almost.
Well, and part of it was I believe she was sitting right behind David Oyelowo, and he ended up having a lot of both he and Chris Pine seemed to be very expressive through the course of the night, like tearing up, etc.
Right.
So not only did you get shots of Oprah because Oprah, but you also got shots of David Oyelowo and Oprah sitting right behind. So she had good seating for exposure.
That's logical and everything, but the real reason is because Stedman was there with her, and everyone wants to see Stedman when he makes it.
That's true. I was fangirling over Stedman.
I was.
Totally was.
That mustache? Ooh, honey child. Wow.
Wow, Brad.
Oh, my God.
No, but Will, I mean, the other probably the other musical performance that kind of brought the house down was the John Legend and Common's Glory performance. That was a
that was
huge hit
so
with the
good.
crowd. Had a lot in the audience move to tears. I saw some of it. I didn't get to see all of it, but
David Oyelowo was crying out of his nose.
Yeah, I know. He was crying from his eyes and his nose. So
that was such a good number.
Chris Pine had the stoic one tear thing as he stood up and applauded. I was like, this is going to get turned into a GIF.
I saw that, and I yelled at the TV, "Are you one of those single tear people?"
That's what J.K. Simmons should have done that.
He should have. So that makes those three musical performances that really did it for me. The Lady Gaga one, the Everything Is Awesome was a breath of fresh air in a lot of high energy and a lot of fun in something that hadn't been as much fun as it could have been, and definitely would taper off after that.
I was like, wow, the ADHD crowd is really loving this part right here.
What they did was they captured like all of the fun of the movie and all of the fun of playing with Legos and just kind of taking things apart and going with it. They just like, fuck it, let's put it all up on stage. I enjoyed that, and I loved Glory. The amount of dignity they brought to it. Having the bridge set was amazing. Having the chorus basically coming through the bridge, kind of recreating the famous scene from the film and from history, was perfect. It nailed it in terms of tone. And the other song that I kind of enjoyed, and I say kind of for a reason. What's that?
The Glenn Campbell song?
Yes. So the Glenn Campbell song, I did not see the Glenn Campbell documentary this last year, and in listening to the song, I don't think that it was. I'm not a Tim McGraw fan. I did not like the way that it was performed. But listening to the song itself as it was written, it really made me think like, wow, I need to see this film. I need to, the fact that it was written for a documentary and knowing what the subject matter is about, Alzheimer's and just kind of that last, knowing that you're losing your memory and knowing that you're going to lose these memories and these coherent relationships with the people that you love. That made it an extremely powerful song. So I didn't like the way Tim McGraw did it, but I still it was powerful enough that it made me want to go and watch a movie, and I guess that's a good side effect.
Yeah, I didn't see the movie either, Will, but I did see on YouTube. I think they have some like clips from the movie along with Glenn Campbell's recorded performance of that song that he wrote, and so I was familiar with the song before. It's quite an amazing song when you listen to it, and the sentiments that they're involved in. I think it's called "I'm Not Gonna Miss You," but yeah, I really dug that too. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Tim McGraw, but count my words. Down the road, one of the best actor nominees is going to be somebody who plays Glenn Campbell in the Glenn Campbell story.
Yep, maybe. It's a big year for Alzheimer's, apparently.
It is. It is
with that, and of course, Julianne Moore taking best actress in a leading role for Still Alice,
which we just saw last week.
We did, definitely, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Will, have you seen that one? Did you see that
I did, and it's a perfectly fine movie. You notice it wasn't nominated for Best Picture.
Right.
That's by design. It was a good movie. It wasn't a great movie. But Julianne Moore's performance was a great performance, and dare I say it, Kristen Stewart's performance was a great performance.
I know. I couldn't believe that I actually enjoyed her in that movie.
I walked out of that movie, and the first thing I thought was like, that movie was Kristen Stewart standing up, sticking out her middle finger, and saying, "Yeah, for all those people that said I was a terrible actress in Twilight, fuck you. Look what I just did." She was so good in that, and Julianne Moore was so good in it. She was, I think, the slam dunk going into it. You kind of knew she was going to win. My personal pick was Marion Cotillard from 2 Days, One Night. But taking nothing away from Julianne Moore, who deserved the win, even if Marion was like a slight pick.
They showed that clip of her, and she's like looking for her phone, and she's like, "Help me find my phone!" And Alec Baldwin's like, "Let's just go to bed." I'm like, motherfuck, it's called Find My iPhone. Like, load it up, make it play the sound, get it, go to bed, done. but that wouldn't have been as dramatic, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
They don't do that. They're not that smart in Lifetime movies, Brad.
Yeah, that movie was a little Lifetimey.
It was,
My
yeah.
Lifetime movie of the week, but good. But she did a great job, so I was glad to see her get that award. Just real quick before we move into plugs, any other delights or dismal realities in these winners?
I guess I would talk about Graham Moore's speech. I don't know if you guys probably what I thought was kind of the best speech of the night from any of the winners. His acceptance speech for he was the writer and they won best adapted screenplay for The Imitation Game.
Right.
A pretty young guy who came up there on the stage and he gave a great speech talking about how difficult it was for him growing up.
How he was going to kill himself.
He was going to kill himself, and kids need to, if people know kids that are struggling, make sure to support them and blah blah blah. And but yeah, and there was a little bit of a controversy after the awards. I don't know if you guys read about that.
I didn't.
Yeah. So here we are. We're watching this. I'm like, oh, isn't that nice? Here's a gay man up there telling us how difficult it was for him to grow up gay, and people should be themselves and be weird. Don't be afraid to be weird and stuff like that. And then to find out after the fact, he does not identify as gay.
What?
Yeah, that was his thing. He was like, I'm not gay.
But the character that I wrote for, meaning Alan Turing, was gay, and I struggled with depression as a young kid, not because he's gay, for whatever reason, right? And so therefore he understood. Yeah, it was kind of a little tempest there for a while.
The conversation about it has been really weird too, because I've seen a lot of people's reaction to that as, "Oh, come on now, honey, you're totally a sister."
I know,
and it's one of those things where it's like, there are some people that are at different stages of coming out, one way or the other. And I'm not saying he is or he isn't, because I guess the important thing for me to say is it's none of my fucking business if he is or isn't. If he identifies as gay, straight, or purple, that's up to him. And so he's made his statement. I think what he made, the statement that he made on stage, regardless of his orientation, is equally powerful. He ends it with, we need to have a conversation about suicide. We need to talk about depression. And we do. Those are things that impact a large number of us, and mental health issues are still considered to be like a taboo, something that we're not allowed to talk about, or like, oh, that person's crazy because they have depression, and it shames people from getting the help that they need, and it leads to disastrous results. So it bothered me when I saw people, like, even on my own Facebook feed, kind of following up with it, like, oh, he just needs to admit he's gay. It's like,
yeah, who the fuck are you to tell somebody that they're gay and they need to come out? That's always bothered me. But I went back and I watched it, and yes, my gay meter is pegged. But you know what? This guy, if he's gonna come out, he'll come out at his own pace. It's not for some schmuck on Facebook to tell him when he should come out. And that's don't get me started on Facebook stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me about his speech was, it kind of was a little bit of a reminiscence. Do you guys remember when Dustin Lance Black won his screenwriting award for MLK? I don't know if you remember that. He is a gay man, or was a gay man at the time, and he had an amazing acceptance speech, about how when he was growing up and heard about MLK, it gave him the, inspiration, I guess, to carry on, because he grew up in a very conservative, I guess, Mormon household, and Graham Moore was giving his speech, I was immediately reminded of Dustin's speech back from, it was back in 2009. For those of you listening, it's worth going back and looking up on YouTube. It's Dustin Lance Black and 2009 acceptance speech. But yeah, so it reminded me of that. And so when Graham Moore is giving his, I'm like, oh, it's nice, he's a gay guy, standing up there. I'm like, yeah. And then to find out after, what? He's not gay? I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, we did get a lot of. Oh, go ahead.
I'll admit that's what I thought he was saying. So I'm just surprised. Maybe he could have been a little more clear, I guess.
Well, yeah.
My gaydar, I mean, if I'm being honest, my gaydar was getting pinged too, and I don't say that as as a condemnation or whatever, one way or the other or anything like that. But it was just like, it was surprising when I read it afterwards. But it was more surprising hearing people's reaction to it.
Yeah.
It was a good night for causes in terms of people's speeches from J.K. Simmons telling people to call their families. From Patricia Arquette's, pay equality for women. From Common
that had
John
Meryl
Legend.
Streep riled up, didn't it?
Oh, Meryl Streep and J-Lo standing up,
pumping their fists.
Then you had Common and John
I
Legend.
didn't realize Meryl Streep was so underpaid. I never realized that. I figured, I didn't know she was kind of at the poverty level, and I thought she was quite well paid, but I could be mistaken.
But yeah, Patricia Arquette. This is a whole nother. That's the other Tempest in a Teapot. I don't know if you guys read about that, but of course on stage she says the thing about all of our allies should help us for pay equality and making sure that women have the same rights and stuff like that. And
now is the time for. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then she gets off and does her post interviews, and she expands on it, and basically is calling for like the the gay and the black communities to kind of rise up and help women. And the way it was worded, I don't think was necessarily. I don't necessarily think she meant it as bad as it came across, but the actual wording for it really came across as a little privileged, like hey. You
now
minority
that you gays and blacks have your thing.
Yeah, come help us white women. And that's not what she meant, but that was the way it came across.
It did come across that way.
White straight women.
Yeah. It was definitely like poor choice. Patricia. Should have quit while you were ahead.
Yep. All right, well, we do need to move on to some plugs here. But this is your absolute last chance. One more final thought. Round robin. Will, go.
I guess my other final thought was just if you haven't seen it yet, you should go see Ida, which won the foreign language film. It's on like Netflix and things like that. I only bring it up because not only was it nice that such a good foreign language film won, but the director's speech was particularly comical. He was the guy, if anyone was watching and remembers this, he was the guy that they played his like get off the stage music earlier than they would with some of the big awards, because that's what happens. And he kept talking for over a minute while the music actually swelled, played, ended, and swelled,
got louder,
and
then
again.
stopped.
Yeah, and he was just like, okay, just one more thing, and then 60 more seconds of talking. So it was super amusing, and I get it too. I think it was like the first time Poland has won the Oscar, and maybe only their second or third. I could be wrong on that, but nomination. But it's not something they've had a whole lot of. So he was enjoying the moment for his family, for his country, for his film, all of that. And so it was interesting, but my takeaway for the audience is go see that film because it won an Oscar for a reason. It's good.
Yeah, it's a striking film. It's actually the only one of the five nominated that I actually got to see. Some of the others are out there too. I know, Will, you've probably seen a few of the other ones. But Ida was pretty amazing. I can't compare it to the rest, but yep.
Jim, one final thought from you.
Boy, I don't know if I have anything. I think we've covered everything that I wanted to talk about. I don't know what else to say. That's it.
All right.
Yep.
For me, one of my complaints about Grand Budapest Hotel was it was all style, no substance. I would just like to say, apparently the Academy feels the same way, because all it won was costume design, makeup, hairstyling, production design, as well an original score. But
it was nominated.
I'm just saying. Anyway,
it's still won more Oscars than Boyhood.
I know. I tease. But it was interesting because it's picking up a lot of those awards, and I'm like, oh, great, here we go. Is it going to be a Grand Budapest surprise steamroll? But no, it was like and you get a participation ribbon, and you kind of thing at the beginning. And I was actually kind of surprised that it did take cinematography. I was pretty sure that it was going to grab it, but again, Birdman swooped in. Pardon the pun. Stole that one out from under.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. it's kind of like both movies have their style, or some people call Birdman gimmicky, I guess, because of its one long take, quote unquote, style. But yeah, come to think of it, there is one thing I want to mention as far as when it comes to the 2014 in movies. Boyhood didn't win Best Picture, but for me anyway, I think if there's one movie that's going to stick in my mind as one movie I remember from this year, it's going to be Boyhood, probably not Birdman, even though Birdman won Best Picture. It just made, movies make impressions on people to a certain extent, and we talked about it earlier in this episode that, Boyhood wasn't for everybody. It made a big impression on me when I saw it, and Birdman may have done the same for other people, as well as, who knows, American Sniper may have done the same for a lot of people too. But the one movie I'm going to remember is, and this often happens in that, not just me, but the movie that we remember from certain years. There's a lot of movies out there that are considered classics today that did not win their Academy Award. Taxi Driver, just a lot of great ones out there, and it just. I don't think they'll ever be able to, quote unquote, fix the Academy to always pick, quote, the best picture. It's never going to happen. It's art. It's art.
And also, history judges best better than other things. There's some films that, when you look at them in context, like Forrest Gump is, it's like, okay, yeah, it won a bunch of Oscars. It's Best Picture. And then you look back on it, and it's like, if you really look back at Forrest Gump with a critical eye, it's a bit of a pat film, it's and that's one of the things. History kind of reveals some things. Yeah. Brad, to your point about Grand Budapest Hotel, I don't know if you noticed this, but during all 4 of the Oscars, all 4 of the acceptance speeches, they all used a remarkable amount of their time to stop and talk about Wes Anderson. I think the first one that it won, and I forget if it was makeup or if it was costume, I believe it was makeup, the guy talked his entire speech about Wes Anderson and then threw in something about his wife at the very end. And I think that goes a long way to go, like, one of the real strengths that Wes Anderson brings, and it kind of got highlighted there, is I think he is a guy that is extremely well-liked, is very fun to work with. Like, he builds a lot of loyalty amongst the people that keep coming back with him to work on sets, working on music. Alexander Desplat has done several scores for him, the same costumers and makeups and stuff like that. So I think that was just really interesting to me, just to kind of see, like, he's not just like this kind of asshole auteur like you get sometimes. Seems like this is a guy that builds loyalty with his crew.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I tease about Grand Budapest, but I was glad to see it get some recognition. Go ahead, Jim.
You see the same actors that like to work with him all the time. That does say, Will, I think that speaks to the same thing. I think, there are certain directors that are considered actors there are probably certain directors that are just maniacal jerks, behind the scenes, and some that are team builders and just like in any business. And I think it's apparent from what we hear about Wes Anderson that he's one of the guys that people like to work for.
Indeed. Indeed. All right. Well, let's move on to some plugs as we look to wrap things up for the week. I know it's TV, but it totally counts because Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright, who I must say is part of my second plug. But first of all, House of Cards returns to Netflix officially on Friday the 27th, so don't miss that. And my other plug, just real quick, is The Princess Bride. It's not quite my birthday yet, about an hour and a half to go here where I live, but my yearly tradition is to watch The Princess Bride on my birthday. So I'm going to wake up a little bit early tomorrow, I think, and put it on before work and try and get through it maybe, because I love that movie. But if you haven't seen it or it's been a while and you need a laugh, totally watch The Princess Bride because it's freaking amazing. Will, what have you got?
First of all, Brad, if you should also for your birthday, if you have a free moment, and I know that that's a big thing, but you should track down a copy of The Congress, which is a movie that Robin Wright put out last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's on Amazon Instant Video. I think it's rentable through there. Love that freaking movie. And it's Robin Wright just basically carrying the entire thing. Like, it's cool seeing her in such a leading role, especially loving Princess Bride and loving what she does on House of Cards. But my real plug is something that's way less substantial than that, but it's cool. So there's this dude. His name is. Let me go scroll down to it. His name is Adi Shankar, and he's a producer. He produced films like Dread and Lone Survivor, and he's also known for, in between, like producing these films, doing these, I guess, fan-made films. And he did one for, like, Judge Dredd, you know, kind of spoofing his own film. He did one for Punisher. And he today he put out one that is freaking amazing. It's called Power Rangers, but, like, Power/Rangers is how you would look for it. And it's this 14-minute-long fan film starring Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica and James Vanderbeek from Dawson's Creek and a few things in between. And the idea behind it is it's the Power Rangers, right? The Power Rangers that we grew up with in the 90s. But reimagined isn't the right word. He in a follow-up video, he said, you know, when he was young, he always thought it was kind of weird that these high school students were recruited into this intergalactic war, and, like, what do these people do when they grow up when they've just been soldiers their whole life? So apparently they star in a hyper-violent, kind of fucked-up war movie that explores what happens to a child soldier who is now who doesn't learn, like, anything else in school other than how to kill people. Anyways, it's really, really, really good. It makes you want this to be the new Power Rangers movie. It's not a pitch. It has nothing to do with anything in the works. It's just a fan film, but it is super good. Look for it. The guy's name is Adi Shankar, ADI space SHANKAR, and it's Power/Rangers, and it's quite good.
You know, it is quite good. Jim clued me into its existence today, and I checked it out. I only have one major complaint, and it's that the sound mixing is terrible. The music and the sound effects are so loud, and they kind of whisper and mumble a lot sometimes, that I had a hard time following half of what they were saying sometimes.
Like, yeah, the dubstep soundtrack that they play in a lot of scenes kind of drowns out some dialogue. But I mean, that's maybe a quibble, but I don't know. I think, Brad, you probably enjoyed most of it, right?
Oh, I did. I thought it was great. I thought it was very dark, very gritty. I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it yet. I thought it was very cool. I don't know what I would. I mean, I'm kind of a Power Rangers fan.
Yeah, you think? Dragon Sword.
Ranger, I have, my Green Ranger, Dragon Dagger, and I have my official legacy Dragon Sword. But I wasn't like one of those guys that like watched it religiously or anything. But I do like that it kind of ties into some of the greater lore aspects, not just like the original season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Right.
You know what I mean? It kind of touchstoned on a lot of different things. So I thought it was cool. Yeah, I mean, whether you liked Power Rangers or not, I think it's a cool little 14-minute short film that you should definitely check out.
Yeah, I saw it too. Not really my tempo. It kind of reminds me of kind of like a sizzle reel that, an aspiring director or filmmaker would put out there to just kind of show what he can do with effects and things like that. And it's definitely loud and fast and wild, and it's got a lot stuffed into the 14 minutes. I don't know much about the Power Rangers story, so I don't know exactly how it fits in. It definitely seemed dark. There was a lot of vulgarity. There's definitely sex in the movie, or in the clip, I should say. But it looked like it would definitely appeal to kind of today's action movie audience, I'll just say.
And it works because it's 14 minutes, too. Like, if it had been drawn out until, like, a 2-hour-long thing, that probably would not have been my tempo. But the fact that it was, that it was 14 minutes, you can have something that's fast-paced and aggressive, and that is mostly just, action with a little bit of exposition behind it, and that's still enough to drive it. But yeah, you then stretch this into a full feature-length film, it becomes a completely different animal.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
It becomes Transformers 5.
Yeah.
Jim, what's your plug this week?
My plug is I just saw it today, actually, and we put it up on our Facebook page and sent it out on Twitter, that a new trailer has just dropped for Malcolm Ingram's Out to Win documentary. Just came out today, so this is Malcolm's latest documentary feature. For those of you who've been listening to the show, you know that Malcolm's been a guest on the show. He's been director of Small Town Gay Bar, as well as The Continental from a couple of years ago. And his latest movie is called Out to Win, and it's a documentary about kind of trailblazing pro athletes who are gay and who were gay, and kind of their struggles in the world of pro sports and what they went through. So check out the trailer. It's on YouTube. The movie's called Out to Win. Check it out.
All right.
Agreed.
Can't wait to see that. We're going to see the premiere at
right
in a few weeks. Before the show started, we were actually just geeking out about the fact that we're all going to be together in one place in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
2-3 weeks is right around the corner.
Yeah, totally. I'm pumped. Can't wait. It's going to be amazing. We get to see Malcolm, who actually recapped the Oscars with us last year. So that was awesome. We'll also get to see Nakia, who has been on the show as well. You may remember him from The Voice. So it's going to be a fun time in Austin. I cannot wait. But we still have a couple more shows before we get to that point. So
yes, we do.
We're going to have to figure out what the hell we're going to do, because we're in post-Oscar hell right now. So we may be coming at you with some top 3 shows. I don't know. We're going to see Kingsman this week, and that's been getting a lot of buzz. So that might be a possibility, perhaps.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, exactly. But until then, everyone, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. As always, we really appreciate you guys being supporters of the show. Hard to believe, 2 years later, almost 100,000 downloads. You guys continue to stick with us. We love you so much. Thank you. Music is going to start playing as I give my gratitude speech. But you guys are amazing. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.